Well, look what we have here. A 2009 Chevrolet Malibu Hybrid. I've only seen these in the service literature. Malibu Hybrid. It's here for the check engine light on, and the transmission seems to be in limp mode. Car is in beautiful condition, or physically. Put a jar. I wanted to get the 110,000 kilometers on this thing. I already know that there's some wiring hocus pocus going on, but we're going to scan it and see what codes it's got, and then we're going to go for a road test. So this is a new vehicle record. I've never worked on this vehicle before. It's from BC, I understand. That's why the body's in such nice shape. 110,000 kilometers, no plates. Let's do a network code scan. I'm sure we'll have a laundry list of codes. Brake switch circuit, transmission control module requested MIL, system voltage low, ignition switch circuit low. That was pretty quick. Device power circuit voltage below threshold. Low voltage. Low voltage. Vehicle speed information circuit fault invalid. CAN bus communications. Radio. Device power. Cell phone. Well, we have something to go on. I'm going to clear all these codes. Must be key on, engine off. Key on, engine off, clear codes. Now I know there's a bunch of wiring modifications done to this thing. I think somebody was trying to fix a power issue. Now let's do another code scan and see what came back. Mind you, it might take a drive cycle for the codes to come back. Nothing's returned. Scans a lot faster than that Subaru just did. Well, let's go into the transmission control module and look at some data. Concerned about voltages. Trans data. Well, that's probably a problem. Ignition voltage is at 1.7. I think that's a little on the low side. I'll show you what else is going on this thing. So as you can see, somebody has a rat's nest of wiring. They've run new power wires to the ignition coils. Here's the ignition feed wire to each coil, cut off. Rather than fixing the root cause of the problem, they ran new power wires. There's a wire teed in here. That's not factory. There's wiring running out from underneath here. There's fuse jumpers in here, fuse cheaters. This wire over here, I don't know where this goes. Wow. Looks a little sketchy. So where to start? I almost want to just rip everything off. This would be the transmission controller here. It's obviously got low voltage to it. I'm pretty sure this is the tranny controller and this is the ECM. Well, let's pull up a wiring diagram. So I cut off all the aftermarket wiring crap, and all these pink black wires, this one looks like it's orange because it's colored, stained, they all come from fuse 43 in here. So we're going to check that because there's no power to any of these wires right now. So I'm going to splice them all back together the factory way. I have to add some wire because they're obviously got butt connectors on here. They've been spliced together and unspliced a couple times now. So fuse 43 is this 15 amp fuse, and it was missing. Now they had ran a jumper wire in here and I just pulled it out. I didn't pay attention to exactly where it came from, but I think it came from either this spot or one of these spots. They might have had it in here, or they might have had it in here. So now we have power to these cut off wires now, as you can see. So I'm not sure if that fuse is blowing for some reason, and that's why they ran new wires, but we're going to splice these 4 wires back to the coils to where they're supposed to be and see if the car runs. Well, I thought I'd check the ignition voltage to the transmission computer, and it's still only 2 volts with the key on, so that fuse doesn't feed that. But let's fix the ignition wires first. So there's all the wires back to stock, running on the stock original circuit. But we still have low voltage to the transmission computer, so we're going to check to see where that comes from. So the transmission computer, right here, gets its power on circuit 39, a pink wire, from the run crank relay, and fuse 4, a 10 amp fuse. So let's check that and see if that's good. So this is fuse, what was it, 10 or 8?
It was...
Or 4.
4.
Yeah, fuse 4 for the TCM. It's good. It comes from the run crank relay, which is good. So I've got the TCM pulled out. I'm going to disconnect it and identify the pin on here that is supposed to be, this is, that should be latched. Oh no, that's, all right, we're going to take this apart. So we got a headlight connected to pin 31, and this is an ME7 RPO code, and it lights a headlight. So the next is to qualify this ground wire in case we have a problem with the ground. So connecting the headlight between battery positive and the ground, pin 49, it lights a headlight just fine. So unless there's another feed, torque converter clutch, input shaft speed sensor, 11 is ignition 1. So 31 is ignition 1. High speed CAN bus, stop lamps. So 49 is the only ground, but there are 2 ignition 1s. So pin 11 is another ignition feed. Pin 11. So we're going to switch the connectors around again.
Is the bottom corner.
Okay, so now we've got the test light, or the headlight, connected to pin 11, second one from the bottom row, and it lights the headlight just fine. So that's load tested pin 11, pin 31, and pin 49, which is the ground. So I don't see any other ignition feeds or grounds to this thing. So that's looking like this transmission computer has malfunctioned. But there's a lot of other hocus pocus going on here, and it's hard to say what's somebody's done here. There's wires running to other things here. I'm going to plug this computer back in and reread the ignition 1 voltage on the scan tool. So I have the TCM plugged back in, and you can see ignition 1 voltage is at 0.0 volts. At one time it was up to 4, and I pulled the fuse and it went to 0, and now it hasn't come back. Yet load testing that circuit shows that it runs a headlight with no trouble whatsoever. I'm going to back pin 11, 31, and 49 with a voltmeter, seeing as how the connector is open. Somebody's been here before because the connector backing is missing. So that's the voltage drop on pin 49, which is the ground, and it's 0 basically. Pin 31, which is in here someplace, we back probed it with the key on, and it reads 11.76, which is what battery voltage is, 11.79. Battery's getting a little low, but definitely not 0 volts. So I think the transmission control module has gone for a shit. So we're going to explore the possibility of getting one. So I decided to investigate some other wires that I see modified here under the power distribution center here. Somebody has ran new wires from the fuse panel basically over to this module here that has to do with the battery alternator starter system. There's a wire spliced in there. There's a red wire run here. There's a gray wire cut off, pink wire cut off, new wires run. So I'm going to put it back to factory, and then we'll deal with any problems that arise after the fact.
Okay, so there was one wire that was actually depinned from this box, or this connector here, and you can see the new red wire going in there, and that is terminal C4, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, and C4 is battery positive voltage for the LAT, that's the Battery Alternator Starter System, circuit 2240. So I checked to see if there was a short to ground on that wire. I've got an ohm meter connected between this wire and the battery negative cable, and it's over 4 million ohms resistance, so it's not shorted to ground. So we're going to depin this terminal and put the proper wire back in place, and then we're going to go to this controller here and fix the wiring here where they've routed these new wires to. So this is the controller for the special alternator here. You can see the blue wires are 36 volts. So this is a battery alternator starter system where the alternator acts as a starter motor to restart the engine on the fly. It still has a conventional starter, thank goodness, and that's just used to restart. But they've cut these wires off going into this controller and ran new wires, so the other wires are in the harness here somewhere, and they've cut these wires going into the controller and spliced them. So I'm going to take this thing right out of the way so I can get in here to fix these wires properly. Now there's a battery cable going over here. I'm going to leave that attached, and there's blue cables going at the bottom here. I'm going to see if I can leave those attached and just flip this thing up out of the way. But there's coolant lines on this thing as well. I think there's a 36 volt battery pack in the trunk, but I'm going to have a look. So there is a hybrid battery pack in the trunk, but now I have the 12 volt battery disconnected. There's no means of opening the trunk. There's no lock cylinder back here. So 36 volts won't kill you. Anything over 42 is potentially dangerous, but we got to respect it. So I removed the fuse box assembly, the ECM, and the transmission computer, and then the battery tray, and this goes to the closest terminal on the main master fuse here. This one right here, closest to the fender. And we got a high voltage or medium voltage blue cable coming in here, and it's rigid. It's in an aluminum housing. That's why I was trying to lift this up, but I can't. I think I need to find the high voltage disconnect and disable it. But I was hoping to get at these connectors better to see what they did with the wiring harness here. Wow, what a mess. Oh well, keep going. Well, at this connector here, they've got this brown red wire coming in, cut, spliced, and reattached, and this white wire was running over to the fuse panel. So we got to reconnect this one, but it looks like this has been done in several stages because it's been cut off and then reattached and then cut off again. So this has to attach to here, and I'm going to have to use this mess here because this terminal is too close to the end to make another joint on here. And then we got to go down to those two connectors down there and repair the wires. So I managed to get the wires spliced back to where they're supposed to be. I had to add a piece of wire in here. This red wire was spliced, this one was spliced. So we're going to tape this harness back up and secure this module again. Well, there, it's all back together. Wiring back the way it was originally, as far as I can tell. There is still some extra wires over here. I don't know where these white wire harness go. I think they had something in the trunk powered off, maybe a cooler or something. But or trailer wiring or something like that. Let's have a look at the service number on this computer. So now I'm going to start it up again. This ECM bracket is broken here. Oh well, that's minor. And see if we have any new fault codes. I know I got the mass airflow sensor disconnected. And I don't need to put that back in place anyways, because I'm pretty sure we're going to need a computer. Well, the check engine light is on, and that triangle with the squiggly lines like traction control light is on. I'm going to check the voltage at the battery to make sure that fancy alternator is charging. So I got the voltmeter connected to the battery with it running, and it's 14.5. I wonder if there's a diode ripple on this thing after coming through this. This is the output cable by the look of it here. Remember, this alternator is special. It's 36 volts and it's a starter as well. Let's check for an alternator diode ripple. I would expect it to be pretty clean. Yeah, typical. Pretty reasonable. Well, so it's charging. Let's scan it now and see what kind of codes we have. So I know I'll have a mass airflow sensor code because I got it disabled. I got it unplugged. And we have that transmission problem. I forget the mileage on it, doesn't matter. Let's see what we've got. Mass airflow sensor, intake air sensor, transmission control module requested the MIL. Transmission control module is low voltage. Lost communication with the ECM. System disabled, information stored. Airbag passenger present, system invalid serial data, device ignition run, circuit short to ground or open. Lost communication with ECM, PCM, power steering, CAN bus. Alright, so let's do a network code clear. It says it has to be off, so I'm going to turn the key off. Okay, so we're going to clear all the codes, key on, engine off. I'm going to cycle the key and start it up. See if I can keep it running. I think it's the mass airflow sensor being disconnected. Well, let's see what kind of codes it says. We want to run with that mass airflow sensor disabled. You'd think it would. But let's do another code scan and see if we have any of those network codes. See, it hasn't set a mass airflow sensor code yet. You'd think it would, it's disconnected. Invalid serial data. Hasn't set a code in the tranny yet either. Well, I'm glad that the network codes are gone. Let's go into the transmission controller and have a look at data again. Trans data and system voltage. 0.04 or 0.5 volts. Well, I'm going to put the mass airflow sensor air induction system back on. Okay, so we're going to clear all the codes, key on, engine off. I'm going to cycle the key and start it up. See if I can keep it running. I think it's the mass airflow sensor being disconnected. Well, let's see what kind of codes it says. We want to run with that mass airflow sensor disabled. You'd think it would. But let's do another code scan and see if we have any of those network codes. See, it hasn't set a mass airflow sensor code yet. You'd think it would, it's disconnected. Invalid serial data. Hasn't set a code in the tranny yet either. Well, I'm glad that the network codes are gone. Let's go into the transmission controller and have a look at data again. Trans data and system voltage. 0.04 or 0.5 volts. Well, I'm going to put the mass airflow sensor air induction system back on. So it runs much better with the mass airflow sensor and induction system back on. So this system disabled is probably due to a transmission fault that hasn't been reported yet. So I'm going to try to locate a used transmission control module if I can. I got the service numbers off of it. And all I got to do is plug it in and see if the voltage is normal. The anti-lock brakes I'm not worried about. There's no other controllers here. I would expect that
battery alternator starter system module to be a separate module. BECM is on start, tire pressure, theft deterrent, radio, power steering control, keyless entry, body control, airbag, transmission, engine. Well, that's it for now. I'm going to put it outside and see on Tuesday, because Monday's a holiday, if we can find a used transmission computer. So I thought I'd try the Think Tool scanner on here, and there is the battery energy control module. Now it doesn't report fault codes unless it reports them from other modules, but it does give me a data list. Let's select all and have a look. So we got calculated hybrid battery current, control module desired contactor position, closed, hybrid battery voltage, 3 batteries, 13.2, 13.2, 13.2. So that's 40 volts. Hybrid battery current passed, hybrid battery high current sensor, low current sensor, temperature. None of these data parameters or even this module is available to scan on the Snap-on scanner. Come on, Snap-on. I know they're not mainstream cars, but there's enough of them out there that should be supported. And then the other module that we were able to get into, I don't know what this got for actuation tests. I don't know, I'm gonna screw around with it. Oh, system selection again. Passenger presence system. I don't recall seeing that on the Snap-on scanner. And I got a bunch of fault codes in there. Current fault codes. There's no warning light on. Internal electronic performance 1. Communication fault. I don't want to report. Skip. Didn't want the report. I tried to clear the codes and they didn't clear the fault codes. Yes. Cleared successfully. Read fault codes. Now it's possible it won't clear with it running. So I'm going to try key on engine off. So let's try clearing the codes. Key on engine off this time. Clear fault codes. Usually if it requires that it be key on engine off, it'll tell you. But let's see if that cleared them. No, that didn't. But it's interesting, there's no ABS or no airbag warning light on. Well, we're not going to lose any sleep over that right now. Our main concern is the transmission computer. Let's see if this one shows the same voltage. Ignition voltage. Okay. 0.9 volts. Okay, well that's enough screwing around for one day.